Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Emily Schrader, and coming up on today's newscast, Saudi Arabia advances talks with Abbas regarding financial aid in an exclusive Wall Street Journal report. Meantime, the Oslo Accord pre-signing cabinet meeting declassified 3 decades later to reveal heated discussions. And finally, Israeli Arab social activist Yosef Haddad talks about his harassment on a flight from Dubai. We start today's broadcast with breaking news. An attempted terror attack occurred this morning in southern Samaria. The attempted car ramming occurred near Beit Haggai, a settlement just south of Hebron, when a Palestinian terrorist accelerated his vehicle toward the IDF outpost. The outpost soldiers shot at the terrorist and neutralized him. None of them suffered any major injuries. As the terror attempts continue in Israel, the progression towards peace is currently making headway in another country. A Wall Street Journal exclusive report brings new horizons and developments in the Israeli-Saudi normalization story, this time regarding Palestinian aid. More on this story, ILTV's William Sharon reports.
Saudi officials told the Wall Street Journal that the kingdom proposed to renew the financial aid sent by Saudi to the Palestinian Authority. The initial suggestion for the renewal came from a meeting set in April, when Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The Saudi Crown Prince made a pledge to Abbas that Saudi Arabia would not accept any agreement with Israel that would undermine the efforts to establish an independent Palestinian state in an attempt to advance its interests. The Palestinian Authority is set to send a delegation to Saudi Arabia next week to discuss future talks with Israel. According to the Wall Street Journal, the renewal will serve as a sign of the Saudi effort to secure the support of the Palestinians, while also working with Israel to overcome obstacles and establish diplomatic relations. By securing support by Abbas, Saudi Arabia will be able to achieve wider legitimacy in the future agreements with Israel. In addition to promoting support for their fellow Muslim brothers, Saudi Arabia efforts are intended to avoid any escalation against Riyadh for sabotaging a future Palestinian state. The efforts of Saudi Arabia to reach a point of agreement between Israel and the Palestinian Authority will change the face of the conversation and open new possibilities for the future.
As we approach the 30-year mark to the Oslo Accord signing, the Israeli pre-signing cabinet meeting protocol was declassified, revealing 2 camps of thought from 2 notorious figures. ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
Today, August 30th, marks 30 years since the cabinet meeting that discussed the first of the 2 Oslo Accords. The 3-decade-old meeting marks an important part of Israeli history, as well as sheds light on today's situation. The prominent figures of the meeting were then Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and then IDF Chief of Staff Ehud Barak. The first Oslo Accord, also called the Declaration of Principles on Interim Self-Government Arrangements, proposed the establishment of an interim Palestinian government, which would eventually lead to a permanent peace agreement. Now revealed was Barak's sharp opinions as he warned against signing the agreement for security reasons. According to Barak, operating the Israeli police alongside the Palestinian police would cause an inefficiency when targeting terrorists, therefore making the streets of Judea and Samaria prone to more attacks. Amidst the talks, Rabin did acknowledge that the situation in Judea and Samaria after the deal would be less comfortable in terms of security. However, Barak said that the agreement is entirely based on Palestinian cooperation and contribution to the mission of peace. The chief of staff added that the possibility that terrorists would attack Israelis after the deal was signed leaves Israel at a dangerous crossroads, do nothing, or acting against the agreement. Barak stressed that if the security forces did nothing, Judea and Samaria residents would flee, leading to a downfall in the sense of security. On the other hand, if police forces did act against these terrorists, it would reverse all that was initially achieved by the agreement. Rabin's rebuttal to Barak's words was that if the Palestinian forces did not work against deadly terrorists, that would be a direct violation of the agreement. The Prime Minister added that if Palestinian police did not go against Hamas, Israeli police would. The historic cabinet meeting held in 1993 discussed the future of the Israelis and Palestinians in regards to security and peace. Today, the violence in the Palestinian sector is skyrocketing, and terror attacks in Judea and Samaria are at an all-time high. The Oslo Accord legacy continues and is still relevant in today's discussion.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
Until today, there are strong opinions across Israeli society over the Oslo Accords and its legacy, for better or for worse. Here to speak with us about the recent revelations of the Oslo Protocol is Dr. Anat Wilf, a former member of Knesset for the Labour Party and the co-author of the book War of Return. Dr. Wilf, thank you so much for joining us. You were involved in the Oslo negotiations directly and worked closely with both Shimon Peres and the architect of the Oslo Accords, Yossi Beilin. What's your take on the recent revelations? Were the Oslo Accords doomed to fail because of security concerns from the start?
The Oslo Accords were doomed to fail for another reason, less security in the broadest sense, and more for the fact that we assumed more about the goodwill of the Palestinians than was actually there. What we didn't realize, and was ultimately the basis for the book, The War of Return, was that the Palestinians, even throughout the 1990s Oslo negotiations, continued to be very much attached to their vision of from the river to the sea, their demand for return, which in the 90s we assumed was a bargaining chip that they will bargain away once they can have their own state, only to realize that they actually prefer to bargain away a state in order to keep fighting for return and for a single Arab state from the river to the sea.
Now, these new documents have revealed that even Rabin acknowledged it's highly unlikely that the Palestinians will truly have free and fair elections from the start, which was one of the conditions stipulated for the legitimacy of the Oslo Accords 30 years ago. Why do you think he pushed forward with Oslo knowing the risk? And was this a bad decision in retrospect?
So what I take from the protocols, and I think it's something that we forgot over the years, is Rabin and Peres were not some starry-eyed who just believed in a John Lennon vision of peace. Because of the assassination of Rabin, we've made them into people who really believed in this mythical peace vision, but they were not this way, and the protocol clearly shows that they understood the risks, and they also understood the various pressures, such as this is the 1990s, the Soviet Union had just collapsed, the United States is the hyperpower, the United States was interested in getting to a peace agreement, and so there was, they had to do something. We also forget that there were a lot of benefits that came with the Oslo Accords, really an opening of Israel to the world, a massive diplomatic achievement. Israel really came out of its shell in the 1990s, and a big part of it is because of Oslo. So there were risks, there were benefits, but I think what the protocols show is Rabin and Peres understood both sides.
Now, one of the criticisms of Barak, which you referred to now, was that the entire Oslo Accords relies on the goodwill of Palestinians and doesn't plan for the event it fails in terms of security. You were actually a part of the negotiations. Would you agree with this assessment?
There was certainly, in general, the 1990s were a period, we forget that felt as if things that were previously impossible could not happen. The Soviet Union collapsed, apartheid in South Africa came to an end, the Good Friday Agreement was signed in Northern Ireland. So there was really a sense that the world is moving forward. This is a different moment. Now we look back and say, how could people be so naive? But the 1990s was a moment when we could really believe in the goodwill. We could believe that what was the past will not be the future, that things could change. And there's no doubt that this decade and this mood of the 90s cast its spell also on the sense that the Palestinians too are moving with the times and that they are leaving behind their maximalist visions and really want to achieve peace.
Well, we're running out of time, but I do have one more question for you. In regards to where that leaves us today, is there a prospect for peace?
We can only have peace the day that the Palestinians will forgo their vision of no Jewish state anywhere from the river to the sea. The day that they truly come to terms, which they have not yet, with the idea that the Jewish people as a people have a historical, legitimate claim to a sovereign state in at least part of the land, and that they can have their state next to the Jewish state rather than instead of it, that day is the day that we have peace, but not a day before.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Wilf.
Thank you.